Hi, I'm Lia De Cicco. Welcome. This is Teacher Talk. Hi everyone, this is episode 12 of How to Talk to Teachers, Teacher Talk. It's a series of webcasts and podcasts where I bring in some really forward-thinking, innovative education leaders from Canada and all over the world to help parents navigate education school systems. So in partnership with educators, that's key. We want to be talking to our teachers and doing what's best for our kids so they can soar and shine in the world. We want to talk about what's top of mind for parents, and we've explored a couple of subjects like technology and AI and student well-being. And last time we learned from our guest, Ian Escoval, where Canada sits in our education systems in relation to other systems from all over the world. And we know that we're sitting pretty good, not bad in terms of where the PISA scores that we talked about last time. However, it's fair to say that some parents still have questions and maybe some reservations about whether they should put their kids in the regular school system or pull them out of the regular school system to sort of meet their needs if they're not being met in the regular systems. There are alternatives. Maybe this is you. So let's talk about kindergarten. To kindergarten or not to kindergarten? I brought in a really special friend and again, one of those forward-thinking, innovative leaders I was talking about, Ms. Jessica Rizk, and she's a passionate educator, researcher, and parent. She's got a PhD in sociology from McMaster and extensive experience in K-12 and post-secondary education. And she brings a really unique perspective to the conversation about early childhood learning. She's got an SSHRC, I think, School of Social Work, postdoctoral fellow at the University of Waterloo. She's a senior researcher at the Conference Board of Canada and a contract faculty member at Wilfrid Laurier University, where she teaches a fourth-year sociology course titled Children, Parents, and Schools. And I'm going to be speaking to her class in April, so I'm really looking forward to that. So little Leo is her amazing little 3-year-old who's going to be school ready this fall. And given Jessica's background and experience, we can listen and learn about what she's thinking and feeling about this next big step for her son. So Jessica, welcome and hello. Always a pleasure to see you.
Hi, Leah. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited to talk about kindergarten because it's literally all I'm thinking about these days.
Yeah, and you know your stuff, right? So you're one of those people that knows quite a bit about the system, yet you're still questioning if it's the best thing for Leo, because we all want what's for our children. So tell me a little bit about Leo. What's he like? What are you looking for in the system? What do you think he's going to need with two lenses, right? From the lens of a parent who's a little freaked out about sending her baby out into the world, and also from the lens of this educator and all this information that you have. Is there a conflict there? Are you feeling a little bit of anxiety around it? What are you feeling? What are you thinking?
Exactly, for sure. So Leo is, I feel like he's a typical 3-year-old. He's curious. He's energetic. He's like full of wonder and questions. And he's in the why this phase, right? Why this? Why this? Why that? He loves to build. He loves to create. He's definitely what I say, a not your sit at the desk and color kind of kid. And we found that out early on. He started daycare like around 14, 15 months. And I remember feeling, and you and I might have had these chats before in the early years when Leo started daycare, because I remember getting, not complaints, but like low-key kind of concerns from the staff that, hey, when we're doing group work or when we're sitting on the carpet, like Leo doesn't want to sit and engage in the group. He wants to go off. He's like pulling off the blocks off the shelf. He's trying to explore. He's really interested in what else is going on in the classroom, and he's not really sitting and still. And I was fine with that. Okay, so my 15-month-old child wants to wander off. He wants to explore. I hated the idea that already at such a young age, I felt that they were trying to force him to sit still. And like for me and his personality, it didn't feel right. I mean, so now he's grown and he's a lot, I think with age 2, he's still in daycare and he sits and, he participates. But watching him grow and kind of having that experience has really taught me a lot about, it made me think a lot about what kind of environments will really help him thrive for someone who isn't a sit at your desk and color kind of kid. And so, as you mentioned, I'm a mom, but also an educator. And so I do see it somewhat through 2 lenses. Like, so obviously as a parent, what do you want for your child? You want him to be happy. I want him to go to school excited. I want him to feel nurtured. I want him to feel safe. And on the educator side, I understand that kindergarten, for a large part, structures, how they learn. The teachers shape the experiences. And there's a lot of challenges that go on behind the scenes about making sure that each child is supported. And we know that, schools have different resources, different access to resources, different kinds of teachers. Like there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that does make me a bit anxious, because it's a bit of a gamble. Like when you put your child in junior kindergarten, they could have a great teacher and that really like spears, like the course of their learning. And they can have a teacher who may not be the right fit for this type of student. And so that makes me a bit nervous. And so I feel I'm excited for this new step. I'm looking forward to seeing him flourish, but I'm nervous because I hope he finds the right space to grow and to flourish. And I don't know, you don't know what you don't know until you're kind of in it.
Right. So there's a couple of things there that you touched on that I think are really, really important. We know that kindergarten is play-based. Kids are supposed to play in kindergarten, right? And, we want, sometimes they need to sit and focus and interact and have that structure that's provided in the kindergarten space. However, we also know that the skill of being to sit and stay still is a very antiquated way of looking at learning. We were told to sit, and in my day, because we were being prepared to work in factories, to sit still, focus, be on time, do what you're told, end of story. That's old. That's pre-technological revolution.
It's old, and the sad thing is that's still how schools function.
Yes.
Sit at the desk. There's, the teacher is a sage on the stage, or however the expression goes, and you're just expected to just be complacent and sit at your desk. And we know parents and that doesn't work for all kids.
It shouldn't work for any kids, because as we're moving into this AI-driven world, the competencies that kids need are to be able to wonder, explore, think, create, and act. And that's not helpful if you're being forced to sit in a chair. That doesn't mean that we sometimes have to sit and focus, but what you're looking for Leo is, I think, indicative of what all kids need, is this freedom to explore. But that doesn't mean there's mayhem in the classroom, right? You can't have mayhem in the classroom. So you want this activity when you walk into a classroom, or you walk into the potential kindergarten classroom that Leo's going to have. We talked about classroom environment. I talk about it in the book. What's the vibe of that classroom, and does it fit the needs of your child? And all children are going to be different. What we want as teachers is a hum, is a buzz of learning that's based in respect. Silence is terrifying, right? You don't want a tense, rigid feeling. I give an example in the book of a school I visited in the States called High Tech High. And I was shocked. There was a little boy that there was the kids were all at the front of the class. They were having a sort of discussion. This little boy just got up and wandered away and came to near me. There was a little library, and he just picked up a book and started reading. And I was like, what is going on here? He's like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm reading a book, as if I had four heads, right? I'm reading a book. And he was reading a book about what they were looking at, what they were talking about. And nobody moved. No, the teacher didn't say, get back here. That kid had freedom to move. And I think our kids need that today. So we have to talk to our teachers and figure out and ask them, how do you prepare or nurture or advocate for, or how do you create that environment where kids have that without it being mayhem? Because if it's mayhem, nobody's learning. So I love the fact that Leo's active in questioning and wondering and exploring, and I think we have to applaud that and encourage that.
And I love that too. And as a parent, that's what I want. I don't want my kid to just, like, I want him. I remember I had this great teacher in grade 10 who said, like, disturb the universe. Like, I want him to go out there and disturb the universe. I want him to ask questions. I want him to not just take things for granted. I want him to challenge things. And I want him to push back when he feels he needs to push back. And I want him, as you said, I want him to just have that freedom to roam. And like in my experiences, both as an educator and again, a researcher where I've been in classrooms, you don't see too many of those types of classrooms where students can just wander freely. And when you do, it's amazing, because you really see, I feel like, a difference in student engagement and student learning when you start seeing, I don't even like saying 21st century classrooms, because I feel like that term is so outdated now, but I think at one point they were called 21st century classrooms, where, or like a Starbucks classroom, where like you walk in, and I don't know, have you heard this theory before, or the Starbucks classroom?
No, please share.
Well, okay, so think about when you go get a cup of coffee, when you go to Starbucks or any coffee shop, you don't have an assigned seat. You get your coffee and then you go sit depending on your mood. Do you want to sit on a couch? Are you feeling like a stool today? Do you want the higher chair? Like, you kind of pick where you feel like you're going to do your best work or enjoy that moment. And that was kind of, I don't know where I saw that, but it was like the same idea should apply to a classroom. Like every day you feel different, and you should come into a class and just sort of, where do you want to do your best work today? Is it on the floor? Is it under a tent? Is it on the desk? Is it on a stool? Like you should allow students to kind of like almost like be in tune with your body and yourself and your mood, and feel like you can work whatever space kind of calls to you that day. And I love that approach, just like let students be in tune with their own learning and see where they do their best work. I remember going to a classroom where I saw, again, 21st century classrooms, I had students doing work under a desk. And I remember asking I think I was supplying at the time, and I asked a fellow teacher, like, what's going on here? They're like, oh, this is just like, they just like love doing work under a desk, and they get their work done and it just works for them. So like, why not? Why do they have to sit on a desk? Does it matter if they're on or below? They're doing the work, right?
That's really great. And I think Zelia Capitos Taveras is one educator, and Zoe Brannigan-Pipe, who are doing that kind of thing in their classroom. It's really cool because, again, it gets us out of this rows desk, this is structured. And I think what we might be struggling with systemically is, again, that mayhem. How do we give autonomy to these students so that they can take control of their own learning in safe ways, where they can show evidence of learning and they're not under their, bugging other kids or, being off task and all that other stuff, because we still need to get them to learn. But if we give them some power, I think this is about power. You talked about the sage on the stage, and that method of teaching that still exists today. And I'm calling for something very different, the career calling coach. That's hard for teachers, right? It's going to be crazy, and I'm not going to meet my deliverables, and I'm not going to get the curriculum taught, and da 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 da. So where can we start to teach children these competencies so that when they get to the classroom, or even when they're in the classroom, they're practicing these new ways of being, where they are autonomous, respectful, and kind to one another, so that there's no fear that they're going to work under the table and all hell's going to break loose. Like it sounds, and I don't want to, it sounds like that would be a great environment for Leo and a lot of kids.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because if I, like as a parent, sure, I can instill that at home. I mean, he's young, so we're not really doing work, but when we do like activities or things, we don't have like a sign seat at home. It's like, hey, where do you want to do your workbook today? Do you want to sit on the floor? Do you want to, like, so at home, we're already kind of mirroring that. But then the problem is you go to schools, and in sociology, we have this term called like loosely coupled, in the sense like schools are loosely coupled. Teachers, like there's some expectation, like you're going to teach the curriculum, but how teachers do that, what their classroom looks like, they have freedom to do whatever they want. And this is the part that worries me, because a great teacher, a kindergarten teacher in particular, will think about it, and think, I want to foster creativity. I want these kids to come in. They're curious. They're 3, 4, 5-year-olds. I want that love of learning. But you might have others who, are more stuck in the past, and like these kids need to have structure and order, and it's a mixed bag. And honestly, this is what worries me. I don't have an answer, because if you facilitate at home, but then you go into the classroom and it's run a completely different way.
Yes, and that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So you're going to we call it the teacher lottery, right? So every year from kindergarten, and as your child moves through the system, parents know, right? Who's the good teacher? Who's the teacher maybe not the right fit? And it's not about good and bad teachers. It's about fit. Who's the best fit for my child? So let's move away from good and bad. What's the best fit for my child? What's the best classroom environment? What's the best teaching method? Who's practicing these ways of teaching? Whose pedagogy fits with my child? And then you got to go lobby for that, right? And the principal's going to say, I don't have any control over that. Don't bug me. I'm going to put your kid wherever. But it doesn't hurt to say to the principal, and I've done this for my child, you know who my kid is. Hopefully your principal knows. So you know who my kid is, what my kid needs. I trust that you will make the best decision. I trust that you will make the best decision for my child to thrive next year. That's what we want. But still, and again, I know that you will do this, Jess, because you will still have that conversation at the beginning of the year with your teacher, your child's teacher, and say, this is my kid. This is how my kid learns. And ask the right questions to get what Leo needs. And those are the teacher talk tips in the book. Ask the questions. You have every right to ask those questions, to advocate for your child in a kind, respectful, compassionate manner, because you don't want to be at odds with your child's teacher. They're human as well, and they're doing their best job, right? So I know you will do that. What's that going to look like for you and Leo? And eventually Mila.
I know
The
my
baby.
as you said, I'm already kind of going in, it's like a blessing and a curse to know what you know when you're in education, right? Because growing up with immigrant parents, my parents, they didn't question anything. You would just, it is what it is. You don't talk back to the teacher. If there was a problem, it was on me. Like, so I have a very different approach to this compared to my parents. Like, I would go in and say, as you said, this is my son. This is how he learns best. And I would advocate him. And I think you said it. That's the biggest thing I think a parent can do is know that you can advocate. And as you said, in a cooperative way, because you want to work alongside your child's teacher and the school. Like, this is a community, and kids learn best and they work best when parents and schools and teachers work in tandem with one another. And so, as you said, I would, I'm already kind of looking forward to next month when we go into his future school and we get to meet the teachers and we get to see the classroom. So I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, just like, I can't wait to see what kind of awaits, but I'm ready to just, I'm ready to push to get the best support for him, to get, teachers who are on board with his type of learning, because I know that it's in my right to do that. And I don't want to feel bad about it. I remember when we started daycare, I didn't want to start pushing back. It felt like I felt at odds with myself, like I shouldn't, just let it be. But at some point, I couldn't do it anymore. I thought, no, I have to let them know that it's fine that he does it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay that he gets up and wander. And anyways, I hope that in the classroom ahead, that's the approach that teachers would be open to talking to parents. And I know it's a lot. Listen, I've been on the other side of it too. I was a teacher. I taught JK. Like, I know it's not easy to deal. And this is the other thing with how many kids now? 25, 30 kids in a kindergarten class. How can you accommodate every single one? That's not easy. So I get that too.
Thank you for saying that, because I do think we're talking about the parent experience, but we also have to be, understanding of what the teacher's trying to do. I mean, most teachers, I'm going to say, go into the profession because they care. They want to do and help children learn and grow. There's an affinity there. There's a calling. I'd like to hope that with a lot of teachers, and I work with great teachers, and I applaud and try to support everything that they do. But you touched on a few things, and you were afraid, and you're an educator, and yet you were still reticent about having that conversation because you don't want to be like, oh my God, here comes that parent.
Exactly. I don't want the teachers to hate me because they're taking care of my kid, and oh my God, if they hate me, like I want them to love my kid and love me.
But they're not. It's not about. And of course, everybody wants to be loved, right? But sometimes it's in order to get what's best for your child, you have to be firm, and it's not about love or like. It's just about being authentic with integrity and kindness. And if they don't like you, that's okay. But as long as you respect them, I think that's the bottom line, is when you come in with respect and you work together, it's for the better. We're in service of the child, right? So I wanted to just put this out there and get your thoughts. I spoke at a panel mid last week, and one of the questions from the parent or the school headmaster was, this was in the States, who knows the child better, parent or teacher? And I was struck by that question. I went, it's really not about who knows the child better. It's about who knows the child different. Because, how many times as parents have we seen our kids could be, a little disruptive or whatever at home. They're in one environment, but they're in a separate environment. They're little angels. I'm like,
who is this child? Yeah.
Who is this child, right? So you see, the child is multifaceted, and there's many aspects to a child. So it's not about who knows the child better, parent or teacher. It's who knows the child different. As parents, and we, sometimes we dig in our heels. My kid would never do that. If you get that call from my kid would never do that. But the school might be seeing a different aspect of your child than what you're seeing. So how do you work together so you, teacher and parent, get a very fulsome look at the child, so you get all aspects of the child, and then together you can curate or create or talk about or build what that child needs. So what are some of the things that parents could bring? What are some of those aspects of the child that parents could fill teachers in about? And you, as an educator, you can answer that from both sides. What does the educator see?
Yeah, I mean, I think the transparency is key. I think it's all about communication. I think really at the end of the day, it's just having those open lines of communication. And like, I'll give you an example. Like when Leo when he started daycare, he was biting a lot. He was hitting a lot. He was doing a lot of things that he wasn't doing at home. And my initial reaction was not like, Oh my goodness, my son would never do that. I try to work alongside the educators at the daycare and try to understand, okay, well, let's try to get at the why. Like, why might he be doing that? What might some triggers be? Like, what's happening in the classroom? Because obviously I'm I don't see that behavior at home, and I'm not doubting that he's doing that, but something is happening, and I want to try to get at the bottom of it. So I worked with them, and we talked about what might be setting him off, what might be some of the triggers that are happening, and we try to look at what are some possible solutions. And again, this was like, okay, you work on this at school, I'll reinforce it at home, and so it's a partnership. I'll buy some books and we'll talk about that hands are not for hitting and teeth are not for biting, and you do the same at school. And so we work alongside each other, and that really helped, because again, it goes back to communication. It shouldn't be one or the other trying to kind of work at these issues. You have whatever you do at home, you got to reinforce at school, and vice versa.
Nailed it. Mic drop, Jessica Rizk. I was going to say, exactly. When a child is acting out, whether in kindergarten, and especially in kindergarten, because they're little and they're new to the environment, that their behavior is calling out a why.
Mm-hmm.
And you just did it beautifully. You didn't go in there defensive and ready for a fight, and you did something quite amazing, which is hard for us to do. And that you didn't make Leo's behavior a reflection of your parenting. My child is good, therefore I am good. My child is misbehaving. No way, my child would never do that because I am a good parent, right? You have the competency and the skill, and just because I think you're fabulous, to say why. Let's look at this behavior. It's underpinned with something. Is it frustration? Is it boredom? And then teach. Okay, we don't do that to express whatever emotion he's trying to figure out, emote, and feel in his body. And then you work with the teachers to get at that. I know we're getting away from kindergarten, but if we could teach this in kindergarten.
The same thing. I mean, his triggers were new teachers. That's going to happen in kindergarten. Is if your child's in daycare or not, or if he's been at home or she's been at home, whatever this case is, there's going to be new faces regardless. And that was a trigger for Leo. And they had a lot of turnaround at this particular school. So seeing new teachers threw him off. At that point, his language wasn't fully developed, so he had trouble articulating. And how many 4 and 5-year-olds have high emotional intelligence? That's a skill that needs to be taught. So sometimes when a kid took his toy away, he got frustrated. He didn't know how to express himself, so he started hitting. And I think you would see that in kindergarten as well. Again, especially for some children who may not have had that exposure in daycare, where now you have to share, now we have to wait a turn. Like there's all these new routines and rituals that a child's going to have to get used to. And of course, it's going to be very hard to adjust. And there may be some behaviors that come out of that. And as you said, Leah, it's not a reflection of parenting, although it's very hard because I did internalize it at first. Why is my child biting? What my first thought was, oh my God, what did I do wrong? And then then the educator part kicked in. I was like, no, let's assess the situation. Let's see what's happening in his environment that might be causing these kind of changes. And so it's very likely that as a child starts kindergarten, it's a transition. As adults, change is hard. Can you imagine a 4 or 5-year-old now starting school? That's a huge change.
Yeah. And I think these transitions, and you just alluded to that, happen all the time. These transitions are going to happen throughout your life. So maybe kindergarten is that first opportunity, or daycare is that first opportunity to help teach how to do transitions.
Yeah, it's a skill. Emotional regulation is a huge skill that as adults we have to learn. We have to teach it to our kids. And as you said, teach them to be okay with change. And how do you deal with change?
Yes.
Validate the emotions. Leo would say, I don't want to, like when he started getting his language sometimes, oh, I'm shy and I don't want to go. And it's okay. And that's fine. It's okay to feel shy. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to miss mommy and dad. And we miss you too. But, we go to school and we learn. And so there's going to be a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings. And I've already kind of started in anticipation for this change, knowing that he's in preschool now and he got used to his teachers. He has friends, but knowing that in a few months, he's going to lose that. And now it's new teachers and new friends. And I've already started to talk to him. Leo, after the summer, we're going to go to kindergarten. Like, isn't that amazing? You're going to have new friends. You're going to have new teachers. You're going to learn. And he already sometimes looks at me and says, I don't want to, Mom. I don't want to go to kindergarten. I like preschool. I like my friends. I'm like, I know, but you're going to make new friends. And isn't that exciting? And so I've already, and as a parent, that's something to think about. It's just preparing your child for these transitions because it's going to be hard.
Prepare your child for kindergarten. That is
Yeah.
incredible. And how to prepare your child for kindergarten. Have these discussions. If you're excited about it, your child's going to be excited about it. Maybe walk by the school. This is your new school, because like a big structure can be freaky to a little one, right?
Yeah, so we're lucky that our daycare is attached to his future school.
Oh,
And so every day we walk, now thankfully the weather's nice, we go for walks and we see the kindergarten kids outside. Sometimes I say, look, Leo, like, isn't this a big yard? Like, look at this, area that you're going to play. So familiarizing them, like you said, with the school, it'll feel less intimidating. If they are in daycare, if they're not building those predictable routines, like, this is what the morning's going to look like. You're going to go to school and, we're going to have, like, because Leo's in daycare, I kind of try to remind him it's going to be the same. Don't be scared. You're going to go. You're going to drop off your bag. You're going to go inside. You're going to learn. Talking positively, as you said, validating their feelings. So it's okay to feel nervous. It's okay. You're not alone. This is a normal feeling. These are all things I think will help. We're trying to encourage Leo to be more independent now as it like inches closer to kindergarten. Make sure you put on your shoes, put on your jacket by yourself, using the washroom, because at daycare he still gets a lot of help. I think that's and talking to others who have already been in the system. So what was it like for your child? What did you find? What did you wish you did differently? Those are things I think could be helpful for a parent who's starting to think about kindergarten.
yes, I know you're nervous about this, but man, I am just such a fan of yours. It sounds to me like you've really nailed it. In terms of the system as it is. Pardon?
It's a check-in with me in September. We'll see how that goes when
So I'm gonna check in with you in September. I'm gonna check in with you in next week, because I just learned so much from you.
I appreciate that.
I
I
think
learned
that
from you
it's
too.
wonderful that you're helping us with your perspective and helping other parents as well. So I want to ask you this: if you could have the perfect kindergarten, what would that look like? What would be the because I know parents are looking at alternatives. There's homeschooling, there's alternative schools, there's all kinds of different ways that kids can learn today. So we still have our traditional classic system, and that's where most kids go. But a lot of parents are going, not for my kid, and are looking for, or really busting open the walls of the schools or the system to say, maybe I should look at this and this isn't going to work for my kid. Or sadly, sometimes the kids do not thrive in the regular system and they have to pull them out and look for alternative ways. So, if you could dream a big dream, what would school look like and what would kindergarten look like for kids?
I feel like in an ideal world where this is like a utopian world where we just create the
Yeah,
school.
just as vision
My
or
vision
deal for kindergarten.
kindergarten. I think first and foremost, and that this is a big thing, is is smaller class sizes. I can't fathom 30 little ones, even with an educator and an EC. That is a lot. In an ideal world, you'd have a small class size. And I think, to be honest, this is part of the reason why I think a lot of people look at alternative schooling, like private schools, because you get the smaller class sizes. Smaller class sizes means more individual attention to students, more hands-on with the teacher, and a teacher who can actually not only like recognize student needs, but help meet those needs. It's just not possible when there's, I think it's still 30 or 25 something. Anyways, it's a lot. I forgot the exact number, but it's still a lot of little people to take care of and to think about. And then especially with kindergarten, you have a lot of students who might not be formally assessed or diagnosed yet, and so now you have all these unmet underlying needs that have to go through the formal testing process, and there might not be supports in place for those students already. And that's a big thing that I think about too, right? Because there's just a lot going on, and how much of this is just nerves for kindergarten, how much of this might be an underlying issue that needs to go through the proper channels to get the proper supports in place. So smaller class sizes for sure, and if there is going to be these larger class sizes, more support staff, because that makes sure that every child can thrive. More hands on deck. We talked about that Ontario kindergarten is play based, and I do think that's great. But as I already alluded to, it's not all classrooms are created equal. Not every classroom is going to look the same. And I think, again, in this ideal world where money's not an object, you'd have teachers who have a lot of PD that prepares them for kindergarten, that has more
PD, tell us what PD is.
professional development,
Okay.
which teachers are already getting. But again, it's so mixed. And I don't know what it's like exactly for kindergarten teachers, but again, there's just so much diversity in what that classroom will look like. And so I think having some sort of consistency across the board would help. Obviously, more inquiry driven learning that puts that student at the center, I think would be ideal. What else am I thinking here? I said already, supports for the children who might need it, stronger family school partnerships. But this is a hard one, right? Because again, in an ideal world, parents and teachers would have this, like, there'd be actively involved parents, and teachers would be, communicating with parents. But the reality is it's not like that. And in my fourth year seminar class that I teach, we actually talk about the nature of family and school relationships. And we say that oftentimes the students who end up doing best and who flourish in school, especially in kindergarten, are the ones who have parents to advocate and support and do a lot of the stuff. But that is not the case for a lot of parents. I'm privileged that I can do this. Some parents don't have first language, like the barrier. Some parents are working full time, have shift work. Like, there's so much diversity in home life that it's hard. It's hard to say that in an ideal world, parents and school would work together. But in my vision, that's what it would be. It would be teachers trying to accommodate more to parents who cannot necessarily be as involved as others, because that makes a huge difference, right? You can't always, just like you can't lean into the students who are always raising their hands. You can't always lean into just the parents who are around and involved, because some parents want to, but they just can't. Anyways, I kind of digress a little bit here, but other things, I think, again, access to resources, which kind of goes back into this whole idea of like creating kind of equalized classrooms, like especially for kindergarten, it's such a foundational year in schooling, like making sure that schools have all the resources and programs, whatever, early literacy support in place. Because as you know, I mean, some schools get funding through like parent teacher councils, and there's so many other ways that they get access to funds that puts them ahead as others. And I think also, like, I'm just thinking about what skills are going to be valuable moving forward. Teaching social emotional skills. I think in an ideal classroom, we would have kindergarten classrooms that do prioritize teaching emotional skills, like self-regulation and this is hard, like resilience, creativity. Like you've touched about this too. Like, how can you actually teach students that? It's hard, and I think more teacher training to think about these kinds of issues earlier on would be a huge asset. But anyways, there's a lot, I think, but I think really a smaller class sizes and more resources would be huge. And I think that's probably a lot of reason why people look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. Class sizes are certainly a challenge, and our systems are trying to shift. We've been trying to shift for a long time, but I think we're really at an inflection point now. And I think the concern around class sizes is really reflective of parents. And I think teachers I know I wanted this as a teacher. I want to know the child.
Of course.
I want to see the child's spirit. I want to play with that child and get to know where that child might want to go, because I see it as my job to help direct or show a road to where that child wants to go based on who that child is and what that child's spirit shows me, so that child can shine bright and be his best self and contribute to the world. And with 30 kids, that's really, really tough to do.
Yeah.
That's tough to do. So my hope, as we start to integrate more and more of this technology, I know we really mucked it up with cell phones and stuff, and we're trying to course correct, but I'm hoping with this integration of AI that we can do it with much more intent, so that the technology can do that kind of work. So the teacher can sit and get to know the kids better. Because I think the gift of a teacher is to watch a child learn, grow, and develop, not to sit there and do the drudgery that I couldn't stand.
It's like it's for everyone. Teachers, as you said, I don't think I know a single teacher who'd be opposed to smaller class sizes, right? Like, it makes the teacher's job more efficient and effective when they know their students. It makes the students learning a lot, gives them that ability to flourish in different ways. But I mean, I remember Dan and I, we were looking at alternative schools just as an option, and we had looked at this private school, and because the biggest reason was small class sizes, and I walked into a class and it felt different. There was less bodies. It was quieter. It was, there was less, because there were just like less kids, and it was an interesting experience to see.
So let's pause and give a shout out to those kindergarten teachers that are going to be welcoming 25 kids into their classrooms. Um, and maybe think about the work that they have to do to make that classroom experience the best for each and every child, given where we're at right now in terms of what kindergarten looks like in the regular stream. I mean, let's be real here. There's a real inequity when we start talking about private schools, because most people can't afford private schools, right? So you're going to be going into the regular stream with 25 kids, and what can we as parents do to prepare our little ones for that? And I'm going to go back to all the great things that you said, Jess, that you're doing for Leo, that other parents can also do if the regular stream is the option or the path they're going to take for their child.
Yeah, it's just communication. I always said as an educator, I always found kindergarten the hardest grade to teach, and it's like kudos to all those amazing teachers who really set the foundation. And it is the hardest grade. I kid you not. It is. There's like just so much pressure to make sure that you're reaching every student, and all these students are coming in with big emotions and different, and the learning gaps are different. Like each child is setting foot into the classroom for the first time, bringing in different knowledge, right? Some kids know their ABCs, some kids don't, and it's like really up to the teacher to like level out that learning. So it is, yeah, it is very hard, and I think advocacy and just communicate. It is the biggest thing that you can do, I think, to support your kid is just be in the know. And again, like as coming from immigrant parents who felt it wasn't their job to like teach, it was the school's job. I can say like as an educator now, a parent, it is definitely you have to work hand in hand. Teachers are seeing their your children for a large part of the day, and as you said earlier, they're going to see a different version of them that you might not see at home. And so it's important that both parties know what's going on and you work together to give your child the best space to flourish, whether at home or at school or wherever. And just you're on the same team. You're working together to support your child.
Jessica, you have brought so much to this webcast podcast. In this short period of time, you've just encapsulated all the wonderful things that can be happening in the system and parents can be doing right now to help their children. I think I taught kindergarten for half a day.
Yeah.
Let's just get that out there. It's a lot. It's really, really hard. And you have to have a lot of love to be a kindergarten teacher. A lot. How many times have we heard as teachers, children, the little ones call us mommy?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes you got to be mommy. So shout out to those teachers. Shout out to the parents who are trying to figure this out right now. I hope that we've been able to give you some information that's going to help you feel a little bit better about sending off your baby to school for the first time. Jessica, I know that Leo's going to be great. He's very lucky to have you and Ben, who is your husband. And you're going to course credit every time you need to. So that's what parents can be working on. Know your child. And I'm going to reiterate everything you said so beautifully here. Communicate, partner, be present with kindness, compassion, and integrity, and your child will soar. So thank you, Jessica Rizk, for today, for all the work that you're doing for our systems, for all the things that you're saying and all the things that you're writing and all the kids that you're teaching at university. I can't wait to see you in about a month and participate in that. And of course, for just being an incredible sounding board for me so that we can shift together. Best of luck to Leo. I have no doubt he's going to do fine. And thank you again, Jessica. Have a wonderful day. And thank you to all that have watched. Again, hope that you will take away some little nuggets here that'll help you feel a little bit better about kindergarten for your child.